Almost 2 weeks with zero homicides in Washington, D.C. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think anybody ever thought that that was possible. In this article, it says Washington, D.C. goes 12 days straight without a murder following Trump's capital crime crackdown. The District of Columbia has gone 12 days straight without a single murder following President Trump's federal takeover of D.C. police, a feat seen only one other time since the pandemic spike in bloody violence. The current streak of no killings is uncommon in the nation's capital, which has one of the highest murder rates among major U.S. cities. There have already been more than 100 homicides so far this year. I think for a long time, a lot of us have just come to expect high crime and high death rates in Democrat run cities, whether it be DC, Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, New York, you name it, it has basically become the norm. Why is that? Well, maybe it's because Democrats have lowered penalties for crime. Violent offenders know that they're just going to get a slap on the wrist and released back onto the streets. And of course, it's tragic because when we hear about innocent people, especially children, being killed in places like Chicago, when they're caught in the crossfire of things like gang wars and just random acts of violence, it's almost not even shocking. We're just desensitized to it because we know that as long as Democrats stay in charge, it just feels like this cycle of violence is just the way that it is. Many of us have even started to wonder, and maybe I just speak for myself, but I know I have started to wonder, maybe people want this. After all, they keep voting for the same leaders that create these living conditions. If they wanted change, why wouldn't they just choose different leadership? But I think that this move by Trump is exposing the truth. We're finding out that what's happening here, they don't want it. This isn't the case at all. People are speaking up and they're saying loudly and clearly that they don't want to live in fear. They don't want to live in chaos. They don't want to live in places with rampant crime. And they don't want to raise their kids in war zones, which were created long before Trump sent in the National Guard. What this is also exposing is that their leaders, mayors like Muriel Bowser of DC and Brandon Johnson of Chicago, they're not listening. They don't really seem to care what it is that people want. They like to lecture and they like to speak at their communities. And in many cases, they like to speak for people rather than listening to them. It's this top down elitist mindset coming from the party, ironically, who claims to be fighting the elite and standing up for the marginalized communities. Yet I think it's becoming abundantly clear that they're the ones creating marginalized communities, and they're doing it with the advocacy of the most unhinged, uninformed, programmed group in modern American history, which are white liberal women. In unison, they're all basically telling these people, we know what's best for you. Go sit down and shut up, you little peasant. Unfortunately for these narcissistic elitist left, people are tired of being ignored and they're definitely tired of being talked down to. For too long, law abiding citizens have been trapped in their own neighborhoods, having been trapped by these self serving leaders and privileged liberals who, for some reason, are fighting to protect criminals, seeming to think that they're the victims because they just don't know any better. They didn't get the education that I got, and therefore they don't know the difference between right and wrong. And in doing so, they're actually abandoning real victims. This isn't compassion or empathy, by the way. It is psychopathic and it's cruel. Ultimately, the fact that DC has gone almost 2 weeks without a homicide, it is proving a lot of things, but it is proving one thing very, very clearly, that it doesn't have to be this way. Crime is not inevitable. It's a choice. And when leaders finally put the safety of their citizens first, the results and the people, it all exposes the truth. It speaks for itself. So, we're going to get into what has transpired since Trump sent the National Guard into DC to assist the police, and then compare that to the response by liberals who are privileged enough to not have to know what any of this actually feels like and what it's like to live under the constant threat of violence and gunfire. Before we get too much further, I know that was a really long intro. I'm Outspoken Samantha. I appreciate you being here. Please hit the like button on this video and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you so much for doing both of those things. As I've already said, it's been about 2 weeks since Trump federalized the DC police and basically went in there and said, clean this mess up. This is our nation's capital. This is embarrassing. Muriel Bowser clearly sucks at her job and she needs to be shown what a safe city actually looks like. And DC residents need to be shown that their political leaders are capable of creating a safe environment to live in. So let's do this. Now, I didn't know what to expect after a couple weeks, but the point has been proven. Enforcing the law actually works. And ultimately, Democrats know that enforcing the law works, which is why they change the laws, like decriminalizing drugs and lowering penalties. And then they're like, we do enforce the law. So that's really the game that we're up against. It's a game that favors criminals. Don't believe me? Well, let's have a look at this guy. He was just arrested in Washington, D.C. for carjacking, and he said the quiet part out loud.
Wanted in connection with an armed carjacking in Maryland told us that, why are you sending me back to jail? I won't even be there very long.
The judge is literally going to say we're going to put him on a 3-day hold. Then once the 3-day hold is up, and a run who never shows up. I done been over DC jail 6 times for the same warrant. They never show up. DC jail has to release me. They release me. It's the same thing every time. The same thing every time.
So he's been arrested 6 times on the same warrant. He's put in jail for a 3-day hold. Nobody comes, nobody cares, nobody does anything, and they just release him to do it again. This is what we're talking about when we say Democrats create laws that favor criminals, and then they're like, oh yeah, we're enforcing the law, we promise. These are their laws. So yeah, they're enforcing them, but who are they doing favors to? Law-abiding citizens or criminals? We know the answer to that. But maybe we need a little bit more proof that the Democrats are the party of criminals. This was in, I believe, 2022.
Talk to the team, and we have a couple of things that I just want to lay out for all of you and on what the DC bill does. It reduces maximum penalties for offenses like murders and other homicides, armed home invasion burglaries, armed carjackings, as I mentioned, armed robberies, unlawful gun possession, and some sexual assault offenses.
She's delivering this like it's good news. She's like, we just did the community a favor. We've reduced maximum penalties for people who want to kill you, break into your home, and violate you in the worst possible way. You're welcome. And then later, when this rocket scientist was asked, so why are more people being murdered in Washington, D.C., KJP was like, well, Republicans.
Here in the district, it is not. There were 274 homicides here in the District of Columbia in 2023. That's the highest murder rate in more than 2 decades, since 1997. This is the president's home, at least a few days a week. What can he do personally about reducing the level of crime that we're seeing here in the nation's capital?
So let me just be very clear. All violent crime, not just here, all violent crime anywhere is completely unacceptable. We just want to make that very clear here. Every community.
If it's unacceptable, then why are you reducing penalties for violent crime? The math ain't mathin'.
In this country should feel safe, want to be safe, and so that's important. But I will.
You know who feels safe? Criminals.
Say this, congressional Republicans, they don't seem to feel that way, and I say this because the president has taken action. From the first piece of legislation that he signed into law, American Rescue Plan, only Democrats voted for that. Republicans didn't vote for that. There was billions of dollars in that plan to deal with crime, to make sure there were more law enforcement in communities, to make sure that communities are able to keep families and Americans safe. They didn't vote for that.
So if you already put a piece of legislation into place that's supposed to make communities safer, why aren't communities safer? The truth is that these are intentionally created crises, and then they use the crises as an excuse to ask for more money. It's what Gavin Newsom has done for over a decade with the homelessness crisis, promising that he's on the verge of fixing the problem, yet always needing more money to do so. And then it gets worse, and then he asks for more money. It gets worse, and he asks for more money, and so on and so forth. Also, causing these kind of conditions creates a base of constituents who live in dire circumstances that forces them to come to the government for any kind of relief. So it gives the Democrats more power. So these are just a couple of reasons as to why they let their cities look like this. We also know that there is absolutely no way to argue that they are empathetic or compassionate or that they care about marginalized communities at all. They are psychotic demons. So I've been listening to a lot of people discuss this issue over the last few days, and there seems to be two vastly different perspectives. One of them seems to come from privileged white liberal women who say this isn't necessary and this is fascist and Trump is just a dictator. The paper that I read and the statistics that I read and the opinion that I get from the wealthy news anchor that I listen to, they all tell me that everything is fine. So that is the opinion that I'm going to listen to so that I can focus my energy on pushing the narrative that Trump is evil. And then there are people that actually have to live in these areas with high crime. And shockingly, they happen to be going off of reality and not a false narrative.
America's orange nightmare taking over DC is nothing but an authoritarian power grab. And I can prove it to you using FBI data. Let's start with the lowest hanging fruit. Crime in Washington, D.C. hit a 30-year low in 2024. And it's down an additional 26% this year as compared to last year. So in other words, it is safer now in Washington, D.C. than it has been at nearly any time previously for nearly my entire life.
As much as this woman likes to tell us that she knows how to do research and read a lot of words, she clearly hasn't read the report of the DC chief commander being under investigation for lying about the numbers. And I see a lot of these liberals bringing up the fact that red states have a higher crime statistic because they ignore the fact that that comes from the blue run cities. 9 out of 10 of the cities that have the highest crime or the highest level of aggravated assault, which is something that she points to, are run by Democrat mayors and Democrat attorney generals. But they like to leave these things out because it doesn't support the narrative. Let's take a minute to listen to somebody who actually lives in this area and can tell you how different things truly are.
Here in Union Station, as you can see behind me, yes. And I walked through Union Station, it was different. See, I'm from DC, I live here. So I can tell you, I can be honest, I'm not gonna lie to you. It was nice. I don't even want to leave. Union Station, they literally, it feels different. Like usually when I walk through, it's got this darkness. It's like you're walking through some sort of demi hood at night. And now it feels more light, upbeat. It definitely feels safe. But see, I can say that because I'm from here. A lot of people that are here protesting, they're not from here. They don't even live here. And Union Station literally feels cleaner. It's nicer. I could literally take a walk around, the great big circle right here? It usually has a ton of homeless people. It's got the F Trump. The people who are saying F Trump, I'm sorry. They look dirty. They look like they stink.
So yeah, those are definitely the two very different vibes that I'm getting on my feed, on TikTok especially. And I know that was only 2 videos, but that's just consistently what I have seen. You've got these white liberal women pointing to the stats and saying, this is what the paper says, so your experience living there doesn't mean anything. And then we've got people who actually live there that are like, oh, this is what it's like to live in a city where the streets aren't covered in homeless people and drugs, and where I don't have to look over my shoulder. I can actually enjoy the city that I live in, that I pay taxes in. So very different perspectives. And one of them definitely comes from a place of privilege. Anyway, I think you guys get the point, but there is one more thing that I want to address because I've gotten so many comments on my TikTok page on videos that I have made on this topic. People are saying, specifically Democrats who like to pretend that they have any room to talk about hypocrisy, they like to say, well, I thought Republicans believed in small government and they were against things like deploying the military. And I just want to clear things up. We still are. That has not changed. I don't want the military to get involved in these things. I want the local police to be able to do their job. I want them to be funded and supported, and for people who commit violent crimes to stay behind bars. I don't want the circumstances to be so bad where we even have to discuss using the National Guard. And I don't want the National Guard to be considered or even thought of as a permanent solution. And I know that they can't be. I don't want militarized police departments or to see soldiers on the streets constantly in American cities. I don't want military checkpoints or any of the other things that you all are saying that we want now. We still want small government and we still want localized power. I also want local governments to do their job and quit putting innocent people in danger as they've clearly been doing. It's not even up for debate. Innocent law abiding citizens are trapped in these high crime cities, and it's their rights that are being infringed on. And if the local government isn't going to do their job and protect their rights, if they're going to abandon their position and their responsibilities, then somebody needs to do it, even for a brief period, so they know exactly, the people that are experiencing it and seeing the difference, they know exactly what they should expect from their candidates when they decide how to vote in the future. Obviously, this is not going to be a long-term solution to crime in the sense that it's going to stop all the carjackings and homicides in the short-term future. But in the long term, this could be a solution to crime when people stop voting for people like Muriel Bowser and Brandon Johnson and Karen Bass and Kathy Hochul, who are going to allow crime to happen. That's the solution. Anyway, I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this in the comments below. Please hit the like button on this video and subscribe to my channel. Share it with anybody that you think might find it interesting and help me to grow this channel. Keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.